Should we be worried about increasing solar activity? Michio Kaku is here with one of, well, he's obviously the professor. We all know him of theoretical physics. He's also the host of the sci-fi science show on the Science Channel, which is based on his book, Physics of the Impossible. Professor, should we be worried about these flare-ups, or, you know, when talking about this morning, we all kind of agreed it has that Y2K feeling, like it could happen, but if it doesn't, we're going to spend a lot of money for nothing.
Well, we had a wake-up call just 2 weeks ago, giant auroras, northern lights as far as Michigan and Wisconsin, and that's a warm-up for 2012-2013. When we hit the sunspot cycle. Every 11 years, the North Pole and the South Pole of the sun flip, releasing a burst of radiation. But every 100 years or so, a monster tsunami from the sun emerges, which could literally cause trillions, paralyze the economy of the planet Earth.
But not from a physical perspective.
Physical perspective, yeah. 1859, we had a gigantic solar storm which knocked out telegraph wires back then, 150 years ago. If that had happened today, it would knock out almost all our satellites, knock out power stations. There would be food riots around the country because refrigeration would stop. Airplanes would probably crash without radar. It would paralyze the planet Earth. $2 trillion in property damage. And again, this is a once-in-a-century, once-in-2-century storm. The last one was 1859. No warning. It's like a giant earthquake. You can't predict giant earthquakes. They happen on a scale of once every 100, 200 years. That's what we have to worry about. We physicists have been telling Congress we have to reinforce our power stations. We have to have redundancy in our telecommunication systems, our satellites. Several of our satellites apparently have already been knocked out or at least disrupted because of solar flares. The space station has to worry about solar flares. But a giant one, like I said, could wipe out power stations on the Earth, wipe out communications, the internet, radar, airplane travel. It would be a mess. We'd be thrown back 100
years. Now with the puzzling
story
story of a massive kill of wildlife in the state of Arkansas. Birds falling out of the sky, the result of some sort of trauma, and fish found dead in the water, thousands of them, in separate incidents in the same state.
They rained down on a small Arkansas town like a scene from a horror movie. Thousands of dead blackbirds on front lawns, and so many in the street, drivers could barely avoid them.
Went out to get the paper, and I looked and I said, wait a minute, what is this? And there were birds all over. We probably had 14 or 15 just in the front yard.
As many as 5,000 bird carcasses littered across a 1-mile radius after dropping from the sky on New Year's Eve.
I thought the mayor was messing with me when he called me. He got me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and told me he had birds falling out of the sky.
Geez, what a way to start the new year, right?
Yes, sir. Last year we started it with floods, and this year birds.
What could have caused it? As the state veterinarian examined the birds today, theories have run the gamut. From their being hit by lightning or high-altitude hail, to being spooked to death by New Year's Eve fireworks.
It really is like something out of a horror film. Every yard in the area looks a lot like this one. Dozens of birds litter the ground, and the scariest part is no one knows how they got here.
Everybody's kind of amazed at this happening.
Most of the animals are red-winged blackbirds like this one, and they're not just on lawns. We found so many of them on some roads that it was difficult to drive without crushing one.
The dead drumfish are now littering a 20-mile section of the Arkansas River near Ozark.
And adding to the mystery, a massive fish kill also here in Arkansas, just 1 day earlier.
As many as 100,000 drumfish dead along a 20-mile stretch of the Arkansas River. It's 100 miles from the dead birds, but the internet was ripe with conspiracy theories. One Twitter user writing, 5,000 dead birds, now 100,000 dead fish. Definitely an alien invasion happening in Arkansas. The experts call it coincidence.
Extremely unusual. Having two events like this at practically the same time. We don't think that there's any connection whatsoever.
Too alarming. Some have called biblical type events that have many residents wondering what's next.
Back now to our top story, a terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead in huge numbers for what seems like no reason. Just in the last 2 weeks, the theories and speculation running rampant.
hundreds of dead seals in Labrador. These seals washed up around Hopedale. There are similar reports from other communities. No one knows why these animals died.
Bruce County Humane Society is investigating the death of 200 cows.
The cattle were discovered on a farm field on 4th Street in Amherst. Today, the bodies were taken out in semi-loads to be disposed of. The Portage County Sheriff's Department says the animals died.
They've occurred suddenly with devastating results. A series of huge fish kills, the latest involving 2 million fish in Maryland.
On Kent Island, Maryland, along the Chesapeake Bay. Wildlife officials say roughly 2 million of one particular species died very suddenly. But this came at about the same time that thousands of birds died suddenly in Arkansas and Louisiana, and millions of fish were killed in separate incidents from Arkansas to South America to the South Pacific.
This is all a sign of the apocalypse. Authorities in northern Italy say more than 1,000 turtle doves have dropped dead over the past 5 days. It's the latest in a series of unexplained sudden death incidents affecting creatures in the sky and underwater. The events have sparked a media frenzy, with doomsday speculators saying it hails the end of the world. 8,000 dead turtle doves in Italy, hundreds of birds dead in Rockwell, Texas, 500 red-winged blackbirds in Louisiana, 100 birds in Sweden, 3,000 dead red-winged blackbirds in Arkansas, several hundred dead in Kentucky. On the fish, several hundred snapperfish in New Zealand, thousands of dead fish in Florida, 40,000 devil crabs in the UK, 80,000 drumfish in Arkansas, 2 million spotted croakers in Maryland in the last 2 weeks.
Well, thousands of fish are dead at the mouth of a shipping channel, as well as a dead whale that was reported in Venice today. The species include crabs, stingrays, eel, drum, speckled trouts, and redfish.
In the UK, 40,000 velvet crabs littered the coast. Brazil, 100 tons of lifeless fish floated. And in Sweden, jackdaws fell in the dead of the night. Across the world, the bizarre phenomena of creatures raining down or washing up on shore has mystified scientists.
The video you're about to see is not a gravel road. Those are the dead fish.
This footage that was taken recently was in Rio de Janeiro, I believe, or Santa Cruz, South America. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but all over the world things are changing. We're talking about environmentally, the weather-related changes may have an effect. Look at all these dead animals, these dead fish. This is in Bolivia, South America. Alligators dead everywhere. Whatever was in the water is coming up dead. This is happening all over the place. It's happening in the United States. It's happening in South America. What is going on? I've got footage of other things happening in the Middle East on some of the beaches where there's just millions and millions of seashells that are just washing up. The dead animals that live within the shells are somehow just washing up on shore. All you see is an ocean of just dead.
200 dead cows in Wisconsin and 7,000 dead buffalo in Vietnam. What is happening?
I think the media is, by and large, not blowing it out of proportion. They're actually underestimating how serious it is.
Rumblings going on again. It's about 7:30 in the morning. 7:44.
We began hearing and feeling a very loud vibration outside. We really didn't acknowledge it at the time, but a year and a half later, the vibrations and the rumblings have become so intense that it's disrupted our daily lives. The rumblings begin almost immediately in the morning and proceed throughout the evening, getting stronger in intensity.
I live in South Windsor. We started hearing some of the rumbling noises and started noticing greater frequency and patterns, particularly in the evenings, where this noise was occurring, and it really culminated in an incident at the end of May 31st. I was watching a basketball game, and it was incredibly loud. The vibrations, you could feel them coming through the house and through the windows. We went out to see what it was, and it was just so intense. And as a result of that, I got involved. I contacted the Ministry of the Environment to find out what the issue was and to find out what they knew about it, and made some further efforts to get the federal government to provide some monitoring equipment.
Back in March, I started to receive 1 or 2 phone calls about some consistent rumblings and vibrations in neighborhoods in and around the ward. Specifically around Rankin and Taunton and other areas like that. At the time, I probably would have thought it was just some sort of isolated construction project in the area, but it then escalated quite significant over the next month and a half, 2 months or so. I started hearing it from all over the western part of my ward, Ward 10, and then started to hear a lot more from residents all over the southern part of Windsor and west parts of Windsor and LaSalle. So I then, at this point, decided to get together with some residents, visit their homes, and start pinpointing on a map exactly where these vibration rumblings, noises are coming from.
Imagine, Islamic soldiers force your 10-year-old son to gather wood for a fire. The soldiers pressure him to convert to Islam. When he refuses, he's thrown on the burning wood he collected and left to die.
They told me I would be released if I became a Muslim. I told them that was not possible. I am a Christian, so they threw me on the fire.
Your son escapes, but the scars remain, a reminder of his sacrifice. Imagine, your teenage daughter goes to Bible camp. On the second day, the students are attacked. One of the attackers secures her hands behind her back, while another holds a piece of broken glass to her stomach. She's told to deny Christ.
I did not answer him, so he pressed the glass harder against me. Do you believe your God can help you? He asked.
Gripped with fear, she cries out, "Help me, Lord, I do not want to deny you." Imagine, your pastor has refused to register his church with the government. During the service, he's dragged from the church and beaten by the local police. When the officers find a Bible hidden in his shirt, he's beaten with it.
After returning home, I felt pain all over my body. It was almost numb at the beginning, but later became so painful that I could not sleep.
It is the 5th time he's been arrested. If he's caught again, the police say they will kill him. Every day, thousands of Christians are persecuted for their faith. Hundreds are martyred, about 1 every 3 minutes. They're not heroes or statistics, they're family. In over 40 nations around the globe, our family is assaulted for their testimony of Jesus Christ. In most instances, the persecution could have been averted if they had simply denied Christ. But they didn't, and they won't. In Sudan, an Islamic army set on jihad, or holy war, has systematically targeted Christians. Death and suffering can be seen throughout the countryside. Countless Christians are being displaced within their own country. Fleeing from persecution, they've lost everything, often arriving at refugee camps with nothing more than the clothes on their backs. In spite of heavy persecution, the church in Sudan continues growing at astonishing rates. Many of the believers bear the scars of their faith, but they also bear a testimony to God's faithfulness. Over 500 churches have been destroyed in Indonesia. On the island of Ambon, Christians have been massacred in a so-called religious cleansing by radical Muslims. Facing increased persecution, pastors in Jakarta have encouraged their congregations to stand firm, confident that their suffering is a prelude to coming revival. With the fall of communism in Eastern Europe, many have hailed its defeat, but Christians in North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, or China would disagree. Hmong villagers have been imprisoned in Vietnam and Laos after converting to Christianity. Some have had boiling water poured down their throats for simply possessing a Bible in their own language. The Hmong tribe is the largest in Southeast Asia, numbering 10 million. Meeting secretly in homes, more than 2 million have recently committed their lives to Christ. The persecution facing our brothers and sisters is not a human tragedy. It's a spiritual reality facing the body of Christ. We may not be able to stop the attacks, but we can ease their pain. Through prayer, encouragement, and practical assistance, we can fellowship in their suffering. We can show them that they are not forgotten. It's hard to ignore their pain after you hear their cries.
Pada saat itu benar-benar kita semua teriak, Tuhan tolong, Tuhan tolong.